Despite solid sales over the past few years, the Sonic franchise is widely considered to be stagnating. Realizing something drastic had to be done, Sega turned to the RPG gurus at BioWare in hopes they could recharge the speedy hedgehog. The result is Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood, an off-kilter RPG much like Mario's role-playing exploits. Has Sega finally found the spark to jumpstart the franchise? Or is it time to put the Blue Blazer on life support? Sonic and his furry friends set out to stop an invading force led by the evil Ix. At the center of his scheme is the Master Emerald, the powerful force that controls the Chaos Emeralds. The first portion of Sonic Chronicles focuses on Sonic and his team tracking down a mysterious character named Shade, who is seeking to steal the Master Emerald from Angel Island. Later on, the plot shifts focus as Sonic and crew attempt to thwart Ix and his alien forces from using it. Much of the game's pacing is off, and the story is ultimately predictable. The sad fact is that the story never approaches a meaningful level, and at times will barely even hold your attention. In an RPG, this is a huge no-no. The writing is passable, but it's just not very memorable, and many of the conversations lack any emotional power. The one redeeming quality is Sonic's personality. Gone are the wacky antics of the hip hedgehog Sega's constructed, and they're replaced with a much more traditional and classic Sonic characterization. The inclusion of branching dialogue sequences that directly impact character development is welcomed, but it lacks any semblance of substance or weight. Only a child will enjoy the story. This is not a traditional Sonic game. There are no side-scrolling stages explored at breakneck speed. Players spend the bulk of their time exploring the vast, sectioned overworld. Within each area, players can move around freely, interacting with the environment, chatting with non-playable characters, or engaging various enemies. Goals are never too obscure or confusing. Players can utilize the top screen to track down certain key locations marked by gold star icons, eliminating excessive backtracking and guesswork. Getting between each area is as easy as physically walking from one end to another, but later on, players will be given control of an airplane and rocket ship in order to cut down on travel time. Of course, going by foot not only presents the challenge of physical distance, but the possibility of running into various foes that impede your progress. Players can elect to bypass enemy encounters by avoiding contact with them, or engage them from a variety of angles that affect the conditions at the start of battle. Most RPGs have item shops, but in Sonic Chronicles, there are only a few specific locations to purchase new items. But this never becomes a problem due to post-battle bounty and plenty of treasure chests. Managing the character's equipment is a bit problematic due to an unintuitive sub-menu presentation. Sonic Chronicles is also devoid of any traditional dungeons. Many regions feel more like levels in a platformer containing numerous obstacles to bypass and puzzles to overcome. Though Sonic Chronicles is supposed to be an RPG, at times it tries to be more like a standard action game. This ideal is also present in the game's length, as it's relatively short compared to genre standards. Much like Phantom Hourglass, players almost exclusively control Sonic via the stylus, though a few actions can be performed with the buttons. Rather than revving up Sonic to speed through a loop, players now approach the obstacle and tap an icon to blaze through it. Even the remedial act of jumping is reduced to a sequence of tapping icons. It makes things feel a bit too mechanical. Additionally, several obstacles can only be overcome by certain party members' special abilities, so players will need to toggle between 4 active members frequently. When not exploring the vast overworld, players are locked into numerous enemy encounters and boss battles. Sonic Chronicles utilizes a traditional turn-based system, with players issuing actions via a menu. This can become tedious just because the icons are flat out too small. Players also have to tap the enemy they wish to apply the action to, and more than a few times, we accidentally gave the incorrect input. If your party falls in battle, you can spend some rings to retry the confrontation. Sonic Chronicles enables players to execute basic attacks, perform defensive maneuvers, and consume items, and magic comes in the form of POW moves. As each character levels up, these unique abilities are learned. Much like the input system in Elite Beat Agents, players will need to follow on-screen commands to execute them. At times, the input is a bit off, resulting in failure or weakened attacks. Sonic Chronicles utilizes a real-time, side-scrolling minigame to determine if you can escape from battle. As your party size increases, the event becomes tedious as players will need to independently control all 4 members as they race across the screen. Though a valiant effort at a unique control and combat system, ultimately Sonic Chronicles feels bloated. battles drag on for way too long, and there's simply too many of them. The visuals are one of the game's few strong points. The overworld features an isometric pre-rendered look while battle sequences transpire in vivid 3D arenas. The art direction is great, but the fixed camera can make it difficult to make out the details. There's a healthy amount of full-motion video sequences, but much of the game's crucial narrative is told through stylish comic book scenes. Many of the sound effects are muffled, and there's no voice work, though, given the results of prior attempts at voicing these characters, perhaps it's a blessing in disguise. The soundtrack features several remixes of tunes from previous games, with some bordering on the obscure. Despite some niggling complaints, Sonic Chronicles is a fine-looking and sounding game. Sonic Chronicles is an admirable attempt to revitalize an aging franchise, but it ultimately suffers from an identity crisis and never really hits its stride. It fails to strike a balance between action and exploration, and though the combat system is intuitive and unique, it ultimately becomes cumbersome. This one is strictly for the Sonic fanatics.